Hey everyone, Ryan Young, Kama Jiu-Jitsu. Hope you're doing well. I was thinking about cancers in the school. So let's say you have that particular individual who could be the nicest guy, stays late after class to help clean up, and always pays his dues on time, and there's never any trouble like that. And when you meet him, when you're not in class, you talk to him, he's a great guy. But when you're training with him, he's injuring people, or you're getting complaints that he's going a little hard. Now, one of the beauties about jiu-jitsu is that with jiu-jitsu, if you do it right, you can do it very slowly and very gently without hurting somebody. And you can always go heavier, you can always get tighter, you can always go harder. Right? That's a great thing about jiu-jitsu. And one thing that I've always liked, that's what I call dealing with your drunk uncle during Thanksgiving. Right, because everybody has that drunk uncle who drinks too much, and then the talk around the table gets to be a little controversial, talking about hot button topics, and he might get a little out of hand, and start calling you names, and you're like, hey man, I don't need that, and he kind of picks it up a little bit, and next thing you know, he's coming at you, and you have to protect yourself, and you have to do something about it. You have to subdue him. But he's your uncle, and when he's not drunk off his ass, he's always a good guy. So the thing about jiu-jitsu is you can do the old drunk uncle thing, because it's a matter of just staying connected to him and making sure that he cannot hit you, clinching him. You can take him down, you can sit down on him. One of the funniest videos I saw was, I remember when I think it was Matt Serra, Renzo Gracie black belt. Matt Serra was at a restaurant in Vegas and sitting mounted on a guy in a restaurant, and the guy's just yelling, I want to kick your ass, I want to do this, and Matt Serra's he's just holding his wrist, right, and he's mounted on him. He's like, oh yeah, you're gonna kick my ass, okay, all right, yep, keep going. And he just did it and held on to the guy, didn't hurt the guy until security came in. When security came in, broke it up, and then everything was good. So there was no assault charges, there was no injuries, nothing like that. The guy was just drunk, and he did the old drunk uncle defense on him. But let's say you got some guy in your studio, and he just goes hard. To him, it's, I'm training to fight, and I'm training to be able to defend myself, and I'm training for real fights in class. And I get that, right? You want it to be as realistic as possible, but realistically with jiu-jitsu, you don't have to smash somebody to be effective, right? A lot of times it's bigger, stronger guys that will do that. And they're not doing it because, sometimes, they're not doing it because they're meaning to be like that. It's just that when you're really big and strong, them moving 40 or 50 pounds feels the same as somebody half their size moving 20 pounds, right? So the amount of effort that they take to move that weight, that's just a natural movement for them. If you're bigger, you just tend to be stronger. And natural movements, he's moving with a lot more force. So what happens is, somebody that big and strong, they actually have to physically dial it down. Whereas somebody who's smaller, they can just go at normal strength and have the same outcome, versus the large guy who's kind of having to not dumb it down. It's not really the term. It's more weak it down, water down. I don't know what it is, but technically they're still doing the same things, but he's just not adding any power to it. Still have the weight, still have the connection, all those movements, but he's not going like none of that Hulk smash thinking, right? So we did have a guy, and he was of the Hulk smash mentality, but I get complaints about him, and it's really hard. When you run a gym, you don't want to hear about complaints. I mean, you do, but you don't want to hear about it, because that means that you're going to have to make a decision. And what a lot of school owners neglect to do is make a decision, right? You have to choose, do I want this type of situation in the gym, or do I not, right? And as a business owner, you have to think to yourself, okay, if I keep this one guy, he may injure 3, 4, 5 other people and put them out of the school. So keeping one guy could end up losing you 4 or 5 people. Now, the hard part is because he's such a good guy, right? You think, oh man, he's so nice, and I really don't want to have that conversation, but you do, for the sake of your school. And luckily for us, it's really not been an issue, because if you're not making your living off of the school, then you're going to run it the way you should run it. On the other hand, if you're making a living, sometimes you think to yourself, I'll just keep this guy, I'll give him another warning, thinking that everybody else, or the people who, this person hurt, think that everybody else would just kind of look the other way or just avoid him. And that way you can keep getting your income into the school. You can basically have your cake and eat it too. Now what'll make it even harder is, let's say this particular person has many members of his household training with you, and they're each paying something. So now all of a sudden, he's among the 20% paying 80% of your bills, right? The old Pareto principle, 20-80-20 rule. So it makes it even harder, because you know that if you lose him, you'll likely lose his entire family. On the other hand, you start running the numbers. Okay, he's got 5 people in his household, and 3 people are complaining about him. So, maybe I'll let those 3. I'll risk those 3 to keep this 5. That's when you start thinking, right? Why do you do that? Because you need the money, right? But if you run the school right, what you'll realize is that you don't need to really worry about it in the long run, because you'll have a school that doesn't put other people at unnecessary risk. And that's if you don't have a policy of trying to prevent that from the first place. So what I mean by that is, with us, we don't have brand new people to jiu-jitsu rolling, as you say, right? They're doing positional drills. So let's say today is mount escape day. They're going to do the 3-minute rounds of just escaping mount, escaping mount, escaping mount. They escape the mount, they get back under. They escape the mount, they get back under, all for 3 minutes. And then when time's up, they move on. They go to the next person, escape the mount again. We'll do that maybe 5 to 10 times in a row before we switch top to bottom. So this person will be doing, they're not rolling, they're not just training free flow rolling. They're just exiting mount, exit mount, exit mount. And then until it's time for them to do another drill, could be exit cross side 1, and do that 20, 30, 40, 50 times in a night until they get to know it. Once they go through all what we call the red ladder, which is all the defensive stuff, once they go through all that, then they're familiar with all the bad positions, and they can now start rolling. Now, they know when they're in trouble, and they can just simply, at that point, they're kind of well versed in how we do things. They simply tap. Okay, I'm good, right? But for somebody who's at a beginning level, that's how you get so many injuries, right? So that's one thing we do to prevent injuries, is to make sure that brand new people aren't rolling, because the last thing I want is somebody 30 days in get injured, popped an elbow, popped a shoulder, pop a knee, busted rib, all that kind of stuff is not what is in the best interest of our school. So, whereas other schools might say, no, you got to toughen them up and let them roll. That's fine. That's the way they run their business, and they can do it that way. But like with us, we want to protect our members. Now, once they get to that point, now you have 2 people that are rolling, and one is very rough, right? They don't modulate it based on who they're training with. Somebody who's half their size, they're still going hard and fast and strong, when they really shouldn't, right? They don't need to do that to beat the person, but I'm training for a street fight, so I'm going to keep going really hard. And, if that person can't hang, then that person can't hang. But, what I'm doing is I'm helping this person, because they're going to come across somebody like me on the street, and they best learn how to deal with somebody like me. No. I get what they're saying, but that's not the way we do things, because the last thing I want is somebody to become severely injured trying to avoid injury in an altercation, right? How's that for ironic, right? You train so hard, and you train with opponents that are so dangerous to you that you end up getting hurt trying to prevent yourself getting hurt, right? So that's something you really have to think of. And it depends on the demographic of your school. If your school is young, like when I was at Helson School, an older guy was in his early 30s. The vast majority of us were between, say, 18 and 26. Right, we still have quick, very good recuperative powers, and we're there to learn how to fight. We're not there to train. We're there to fight, right? And that's a different mentality. And now there are schools that are like that, but if your school isn't, meaning if your school's mostly professional people who have to go to work tomorrow, then you probably don't want to do that, because they don't want to have to go to work busted up. or they don't want to have to miss work because they got injured in jiu-jitsu. You know, that's kind of counterproductive, right? They're doing this to make themselves better, and they're working to pay for your jiu-jitsu school only to have to miss work because of the jiu-jitsu school, right? So what you have to do is you have to identify these people from the get-go and pull them out. You know, if you can fix it, great. If you cannot, you know, somebody's, oh, you know, I didn't realize I was doing that. Okay, going forward, I will be more of a better partner. And they are. Sometimes they're clueless. Go, oh, I didn't know I was that strong. And every day, oh, I didn't know I was that strong. I didn't know I was using all my strength. I didn't know I was being so hard on people. And then you see the guy, you know, laying on the ground, writhing in pain because his leg, his ACL got torn, right, at the hands of this guy. So you have to think long term for your body as a trainer or for your school as a school owner. You know, one of the rules that I remember Helson would have was that if an upper belt injured a lower belt, he would lose a stripe, right? And I've never seen it happen, but it's just a thought process to think to somebody, you know, I had to work 6 months to a year, whatever, to earn this stripe. But if I'm careless with somebody who is not as good as me and I injure them, then I can lose it. You know, I can lose that much of work as far as my rank goes. And nobody wants to lose rank. So that's a good way to think about it and to internalize what you're doing. Another reason is because you want to make sure you have a good environment. So I'll give you an idea of what I mean. I had a friend in California. His name was Finesse. And he ran a gym. And he was an MMA guy. You know, he did wrestling and he did MMA in general. And he loved us at Kama Jiu-Jitsu, right? He met me one day, came to the garage where I was or at my house, and we trained. And he's like, oh, this is awesome. I like this. He says, I'd like to have Kama Jiu-Jitsu being taught in my school. So like, yeah, you know, it's kind of like, you know, we talked about it, but, you know, we never really went that far. And then he calls me one day and he tells me, hey, I'm moving to a bigger location. And there's a room that could be set up with mats, and I would like Kama Jiu-Jitsu to be there. And I said, okay, you know, what do you want for it? Nothing. Okay, nothing. What do you mean nothing? He goes, no, nothing. You know, just bring your mats and come train over here. You can run your school out of this location. Okay, how much do you want for rent? Nothing. Okay, after 6 months, what do you want? Nothing. He says, I want you guys to run your school out of here. Now, of course, I'll be able to get to train when I have some time, but you can even have my students and you can bring them on as members. He goes, I want you guys to make money. I want you guys to be successful. And that was a great gesture. And, you know, I was very thankful to him because that allowed us to take a leap up in our enrollments in Southern California. Well, fast forward, what happened was he had a student a while back, and this is an MMA student, who was really rough on his students. And this is a guy that he knew as a teenager. I think it was either, I don't know if he knew him from Chicago on the south side where he grew up, or if he knew him in South Central LA. I don't know. I kind of mixed the two up, for him at least. Although I lived, you know, near South Central, so I know that, but I don't know as far as his background. Anyway, so this guy was really rough. I mean, he'd be kicking people's legs out, punching them hard, and his thinking was, I'm just training, right? So what happened was he warned this guy multiple times, and finally he just told him, you know what? He goes, I can't have you here. And he's like, what are you talking? The guy got offended, got mad. So Finesse and this guy ended up duking it out. And Finesse beat the tar out of him and then told him get out, right? So the guy got out, and he trained in another school for a year, but because he's that guy, he got kicked out of that school too. So what happened was he went back to Finesse and asked him, hey, you know, can I come back? And Finesse goes, no. I mean, we crossed this bridge once, and I'm not going to do it again, because Finesse is protecting his business. And the guy didn't take that answer too well, but, you know, got upset, ended up leaving. About a week later, came back into the studio, just walked in. Finesse was teaching. Shot him with 45. I don't know how many times, like, you know, emptied the magazine in him. And I got a call from a friend of mine who lived in the area and saw some kind of news report and said, hey, Ryan, isn't this where your school is? And I looked at it, I'm like, yeah. So I called Dave and I go, Dave, what's going on? He goes, I don't know. So Dave sped down there and he checked it out. He goes, yeah, he's dead. I'm like, what? Yeah, he was murdered by that guy, right? So I don't know if it was because, long story short, he shouldn't have trained him, but how do you know, right? But he trained the wrong kind of guy, but maybe let him be in the school a little bit longer, or maybe didn't realize quick enough that he wasn't a fit in his school, let him feel like he had a home in this school, and when he finally got kicked out, got pissed off and reacted that way, right? And the guy's, from what I understand, the guy's in jail. He was in jail, got out, and then was rehabilitated only to fall back into it, and they call and got put back in jail, and he's there. I'm thinking for life, I don't know, but that was a tragic thing that happened as a result of letting somebody who's not quite suited to your school stay in your school when you had signals ahead of time that he should be gone. So for school owners, long story short, for school owners, make sure you find somebody who doesn't fit within your ethos of your school, and you need to pull them out and try to get them to change their ways. And if they don't, you need to get them out as quickly as possible, because you don't want to injure your other students, thereby losing revenue. And at the same time, if you're a student and you figure, okay, here I am, I'm a 40-year professional, I'm in a school with a bunch of 18 to 26-year-olds, you may want to get out. So anyway, I hope that story kind of helped you kind of put things into perspective while you're training, because there's so many places you can train. You don't need to stay in that one place. Anyway, that's all I got for you. Take care. Happy training. Bye-bye now.